Hi, I'm Jesper Scherpenhauser, and I'm a senior sales engineer at Colfax. And today I want to talk to you about delivering real value across the business with hyperautomation. Feel free to reach out to me afterwards over LinkedIn, to Twitter, and please have a look at my YouTube channel afterwards, where I talk a lot about well, hyperautomation, intelligent automation, whatever you want to call it. Um, as said, I'm a sales engineer at Colfax, but I'm actually a trained physicist, astrophysicist, actually. And you might then think, well, how does an astrophysicist end up working for a global intelligent automation vendor? Well, at university, I learned how to analyze extremely complex matter, all the way down to subatomic particles, all the way to the biggest thing there is, the universe as a whole. And I was trained to analyze them, predict behavior, and in the end, of course, well, turn it into something for the betterment of man. So, two steps back. So, what do I do at Colfax? I do the exact same thing, but on even more complex matter. I take business processes, I take business challenges, I analyze them, I predict behavior, and I help organizations, well, thrive. So today I want to talk about hyperautomation. So hyperautomation is not a Jesper term, it's not a Colfax term, it's a rather generic term nowadays. And I took the liberty of taking the top 10 trends document from Gartner to talk about that. Hyperautomation, of course, needs to is of course that end point where you're able to take business processes from start to finish and transform them digitally. And that is, of course, the point where we want to get to. And how do we get to that? That's what I want to talk about today. But first, this was, of course, something that was written down before the whole COVID crisis. So I want to have a quick look with you and see how COVID has now influenced the behavior within our customers and actually the overall industry as a whole. So this is a research done by good friends over at HFS, one of the leading analysts, and they said that they will actually perceive a bigger interest in RPA, in intelligent automation, in process automation, but also in artificial intelligence. And to put that into a bit more realistic context, I've taken a quick quote of a press release we just released yesterday. And it's really interesting to hear almost the exact story from our friends over at ING. But our customer Rabobank did the exact same thing with those loan holidays. And it took them 5 days to save at least 50,000 man hours already. And they're expecting to save even an additional 100,000 just by applying RPA. If you want to know more about that, hit me up afterwards. But that being said, how do we then go on that journey towards hyperautomation, where we typically get RPA as a starting point, starting with basic task automation. And then we do see that wave of digital workforce management driving organizations on that journey. First, typically combining RPA with AI, whether that's machine learning or NLP, but they will need additional capabilities to truly achieve hyperautomation. And that's what I want to talk about. And I want to talk first about the capabilities that you would need on that journey. And then after that, what you would need from an organizational standpoint. Well, from a capability point of view, of course, we all start with RPA. We need to be able to get the robot out of the humans. And we need to be able to automate these manual, repetitive, mind-numbing tasks that we all know. But that's just a starting point. We need cognitive capture. And then typically people say, yeah, but we can do OCR, but OCR alone is not enough. I typically use my youngest son, he's 3 years old. He can do OCR. He can recognize the letters. He can recognize characters. He can tell you what an A and a B or a C is. But the one thing he can't do is understand what he's reading. He is not yet able to understand what's important. He can't do, and I'm going to use some machine learning and NLP terms here, he can't find the entities yet. He can't read, he can't understand that. And why is it important to know that? And again, I'm going to use some numbers that I didn't think of but this was done by Gartner, is that 80% of all enterprise data is unstructured. So why is that a challenge? Because robots and other automation initiatives will need to have structured data because that's what they do. They are rule based and they need to have structured data to act upon. So if we then take that 80%, you will need to have additional capabilities, which you might call cognitive capture, combining OCR, machine learning, natural language processing, and many more capabilities. You will need that in order to achieve hyperautomation. And again, Gartner is fully in agreement with this. They say that 80% of the implementation will derive their value from these kind of complementary technologies going forwards. If I tell you that that robot that we just talked about with cognitive capture is able to read, then we also need to make sure that that robot is able to write. And by that, I mean that that robot, your intelligent automation platform, needs to be able to communicate with stakeholders within your organization, but also externals. And that could be suppliers, vendors, but essentially also customers. And you need to be able to communicate with these people through their channel of choice, whether that's physical paper, whether it's an email, whether it's a WhatsApp message, you name it. But you need to be able to do that. And you need to be able to have that capability so that your robots can use that as well. So you will need that as part of your mobility and engagement capability within your intelligent automation platform. You will also need to be able to extend all of your automation initiatives beyond the confines of your organization infrastructure. You need to be able to make sure that your insurance customer is able to scan a claim, a medical claim, for instance, by hovering their phone over that invoice. You need to be able to have people who are driving your cars out there to be able to scan IDs and passports. You need to be able to have that capability to have, well, to bring the outside world into your automation initiatives. You need to make sure that once you do that, and if you do extend beyond those boundaries, you need to be able to extend frauds. In the example I just mentioned, if you have the capability to scan, for instance, an ID or a driver's license or a passport, you need to be absolutely certain that that's not been messed with. You need to be able to prevent fraud from that point on as well. The same thing is true with signature fraud. You need to be able to figure out if a signature that's been done, if that's the same as the one that you have on file. You need to be able to apply other capabilities within artificial intelligence. For instance, facial recognition. Wouldn't it be nice if you're onboarding a customer and they've just scanned their passport? You can then immediately apply facial recognition using their phone to verify that those are indeed the people that you were interacting with. And then, of course, and this is extremely relevant in today's day and age, because we can't transact face to face anymore. That's being prevented right now, even though certain countries are loosening the reins a bit now. But you do see a need to be able to transact remotely. And that's typically where capabilities like e-signing and digital transaction management come into play. Again, one of the key building blocks for your mobility and engagement capability. I do present a lot in English, of course, but I always throw in one Dutch term, and that is meten is weten. You can only know that which you measure. So, as part of your intelligent automation platform driving your hyperautomation journey, you will need to have access to advanced analytics. And on the one hand, that is, of course, to, well, have operational insight into your digital workforce. You have your robots, you have your machine learning, you have your AI, you have your communication skills, cognitive capture, and all that. That digital workforce that you have, you need to keep that in check. And you need to have proper dashboards, or might I say, cockpits, to provide that operational insight. How good are my robots performing? Are we indeed hitting the 80,000 hours of saved time for all these loan holidays that we have? But that's not just the only thing that we need. We need to have insights also in the end-to-end process, because keep in mind that the goal here is hyperautomation, being able to transform business processes from start to finish. You can only do that if you can go beyond your automation platform and actually get insight into the overall process itself. So that's again a building block of advanced analytics. One of the other things, and I'm always, again, this is the astrophysicist in me, we need to be able to discover the new low-hanging fruit. You need to be able to find good candidates for automation. And that is where capabilities like process discovery come into play. Find out what the next big thing might be for your organization to improve upon. So again, these three things make advanced analytics. Then, of course, I coined the term digital workforce management already. But what you need to have in order to do that, you would need to have process orchestration. Because I mentioned you have robots, you have machine learning, you have cognitive capture, you have outbound communications, you have advanced analytics. And that is, of course, at risk of becoming random acts of automation within an organization. If you have an RPA POC running there, and you've got an AI initiative going there, but that will not result in true business transformation. Keep in mind, the goal here is hyperautomation. So you will need to have a platform that can actually orchestrate all of these digital workers that you might have. And that's where we come in with process orchestration and with the digital workforce management view, where you can combine all your digital workers, whether that's Kofax robots working together with Blue Prism robots, using Kofax cognitive capture, maybe going out to click for someone else, but bringing all of those capabilities together into one single platform where you can actually then also loop in the human worker as well, so that your robots can learn. So the scenario I typically tell here is, let's just say we've got some robots that are doing tremendous work. They do run into some content. They try to convert that with cognitive capture, but they're not certain enough, because when you apply artificial intelligence, you always have to think about confidence levels. And they might say, well, we think it's A, but we're not confident enough yet. Let's route this to a human, and the human can then make a decision. Yes, it's indeed A, and they can then use that to learn from that, and going forward apply those same things there as well. But then, of course, then you really bring in the real value that you might need. And even though I'm talking about these capabilities, these are, of course, the capabilities that make up the Kofax Intelligent Automation platform, where you have robotic process orchestration, automation, cognitive capture, mobility and engagement, advanced analytics, and process orchestration in one single platform. But as said, that platform can then be used within the overall organization itself and really act as a layer, as a platform, enabling the rest of your business units to truly digitally transform. But then again, it needs to be open and scalable. Open, of course, is, even though I would perfectly like it when everyone builds these intelligent automation platforms with pure Kofax technology, it needs to be open. If you already made some decisions in regards to RPA, if you've standardized on Automation Anywhere or Blue Prism, leave that. But if you still have white space within your intelligent automation platform for the other capabilities, you can really benefit from that. And that's, of course, one of the key things. And we like to call that co-opetition. But it needs to be scalable. And when we talk about scale, we talk actually about three different things. Because on the one hand, we talk about technical scale. So how do we ramp up that digital workforce? How do we make sure that if you go from one robot to 5 robots to 50 to 500 to 5,000, that you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel every time? And this is, of course, where new technologies like Docker, Kubernetes come into play as well. So within the Kofax Intelligent Automation platform, containerization or Dockerization, however you want to call it, is a big thing. And we do see a lot of traction within our enterprise customers and the adoption of that there as well. The other key thing is, of course, organizational scale. And referring back to the Gartner top 10 trends, the third one is democratization. We already heard from Yanni and from ING about how we can look at citizen developers, how we can enable them. But that is only possible if you have a business user friendly solution for that, with a with a focus on, well, on low code, where you need to make sure that you can truly scale. Because if you have everything being done by your center of excellence, you will never be able to achieve true enterprise scale there as well. So you need to make sure that you are enabling business users to take part of that. It's democratization of automation and AI. And then, of course, how to scale through the business. We already heard, make sure that you have buy-in from higher management. Make sure that you have a strong basis within the business units there as well. And then, of course, once you have that and you have that big dream of hyper automation, make sure you start small, make your first successes, and then really start and turn up the volume. And then hyper automation will come to you. Don't you worry about that. Um, 18 minutes. Wow. On time. So this is then for me the point where I'm going to open it up for questions. Let me see if I already have some. Let's see. Where are we? Here we go. Introducing, oh, this is a question from Millie. Introducing more cognitive capture tech will threaten a lot more human jobs than regular RPA and may be seen as reducing the skill set of future human workers in the company. How do you address this? Um, I'm gonna answer that with an anecdote. Actually, I think back to a year and a half ago when one of the banks I work with challenged me and said, "Well, yes, but I want to apply cognitive capture to a really unstructured use case." And I was the story was about CDD, and I still remember I had an interview with Jennifer, and she was one of these people that were doing this manual job currently, and she was one of 200 people that went to law school and were doing nothing else than going through statutes and acts and other documents from the Dutch Chamber of Commerce. It took her 15 minutes to go through these documents. Mind numbing. And of course, with the renewed focus on CDD and KYC, they needed to do even more, but they simply didn't have enough people that went to law school to do this. So we said, well, how do we then apply machine learning and cognitive capture in? So instead of have Jennifer doing 15 minutes of work, she now only needs to do 10 seconds because she is still part of that process. Because even though the machine learning algorithms and the AI and cognitive capture do that, they are still able to review that, so they can do more work in less time. But it's not threatening to them because it's just reducing the mind-numbing searching through a document for them. I hope that helps. Please feel free to reach out to me afterwards if you want to discuss this further. My good friend Henrik Olsen, nice to see your name here. Should you be careful not having an ecosystem of too many partners components, as it can be difficult to support it? That's a good point, Henrik. Yeah. So even though you can do a multi-vendor platform, because as I said, it, all of these platforms are pretty open and can be integrated with each other. It does have tremendous value, and well, it brings a lot of profit to you as well if you have it from one single vendor, because you have a one single point of communication, and you can also then benefit from out of the box integrations there as well. Um, yeah, hope that helps. Um, Pascal asks, what open and scalable tools are you recommending to a company new to RPA? Kofax RPA, of course. No, all joking aside, I would recommend to have a look at the Gartner report that's coming out later next month, if I'm not mistaken, or have a look at the critical capabilities report they released late last year. There you'll see a lot of the RPA vendors being looked at. Kofax was actually the only one that ranked highest in all three use cases. So again, as we say in Dutch, ik van wc eens. I would always recommend Kofax, but yeah. Miley says, great example. Thank you. We see a lot of the same. Yeah. Let's connect afterwards, Millie. Let's see where how we can take this. Any other questions? Otherwise, I still have 8 minutes left. Final question. Oh, here we go. Bob, for which business processes line of business do you see most opportunities for cognitive capture tech? Um, Across the board, actually. So when people think about cognitive capture, sometimes people still think about the old mailroom hidden away in the in the cellar of organizations. But nowadays, you see a lot whenever, let's say, highly unstructured documents come into play, and that could be emails, that can be documents, that can be legal challenges. You do see a real renewed interest from KYC and CDD within banks and other FSI organizations, but I also see a lot of application there within manufacturing. You see a lot within accounts payable, within finance teams, risk teams. Yeah, almost everywhere. Any last questions? Then I would say, well, it's been my pleasure. Look me up on LinkedIn, connect with me on Twitter, have a look at my YouTube channel, and I people tell me I should ask people to subscribe to that as well. So blatant self promotion here. Have a great day. Enjoy the conference, and thanks so for so much for setting this up. Cheers. Bye bye.